Good morning. I hope everybody that listens is keeping well. Wanted to read a couple of paragraphs from this book written by Ananda Kuraswamy. It's about poetry. Yeah. Kavi, from the root ku, to voice, to utter, from the root kav, to describe or to depict, is in Vedic usage nearly synonymous with words such as Rasi, Sumedha, Reba, i.e., prophet or sage, or even singer. The professional reference to one who makes literature and the application of the term kavya to the belles lettres belong to a later time. So in the beginning it was kavi or ku. Later, they started calling it kavya, but that's later. If we render the word kavi by poet, we must do so with the original meaning to make, to create, in view and think of the poet not as a lyricist, but as a shaper, a maker, a prophet, oracle, or in Latin, vates, or even as a magician in the proper sense. Vedic poetry is neither fine nor decorative, but simply highly accomplished in execution. The poet rightly compares his own craftsmanship to that of the weaver of the wheelwright. In modern terms, we might say to engineering rather to do art. The verses or measures are thought of as formulas, spells, incantations, centers of force, or words of power, mantras. They are not in any way comparable to hymns or prayers, such as are now thought of as the natural expression of religious aspirations, but for the operation of a Vedic rite or hymn depends on accurate performance, not on any emotional rate on the part of the celebrant or emotional response on the part of the object of worship. What is truly moving in Vedic poetry is not a lyrical quality, but one of profundity. The Lords are means to happiness far rather than to pleasure, and it would be an affectation to speak of them as literature. What is set forth in the Vedas that is essential truth? By what the Vedas tell, wise men live their lives. Shankaracharya says the Vedas are not of human origin. On the one hand, the utterance of mantras and ordering of the ritual by the angels or by non individual prophets, poets, or seers represents a co creative activity whereby the one and similar utterance of the Spirit is contracted and identified into variety. The discrimination of things by name being the immediate cause of their distinction as such, the statement of Shankaracharya in the Vedanta Sutra that the Veda is the cause of the discrimination of the castes and estates of angels, animals, and men. Another name for angels, I think it's devas. I might be mistaken. So we have in the Rig Veda poets, the Kavi, ward the traces of the law of heaven, and in the innermost are pregnant with the ultimate ideas. Then what was best and flawless in them hid in the innermost, that by their love they brought to light. The Nirukta, with reference to the designation of Savitir, which is another name for the solar angel, the sun, the god in the sun, as a Kavi. Yes, the god of the sun is also considered a Kavi in the Rig Veda. Explains he is Kavi in that he displays the various forms of things. Kavi, either because his presence is desired or the word is derived from kavi, to describe, to praise, or to depict. How then the designation kavi is appropriate to the Son and to the Prophet alike is inasmuch as both reveal or bring to light, that is, into the field of perception, what was previously unseen or latent. On the other hand, by the reverse process implied in the phrase, for him who understands, the mantras constitute a means of reunion to higher states of consciousness. So, I would say not a lot of people knew how to read and write, right? Only, few people was was I don't know, gifted or chosen or with this privilege of knowing how to read and write. You can by the process of elimination. Yeah, you can find people who are quite good at some things, and other people are quite good at some other things. Selection. You could find these people who are good. If you are good with language, with poetry, I mean, you would be capable of learning, I don't know, 20 languages, no problem. There's like Ananda Kuruswamy, he knew like 12 languages. And so he had the gift, to poetry. Um, and I suppose, a scholarship was given to people who had this gift. Yeah. Um, it's a rare gift, and it should be protected and treasured. So um, the the poets, I suppose, they were um, asked for advice. I would say from the rulers, from kings and tyrants. I suppose they would hire them. Please check the scrolls for check your notes from previous scribes, from previous poets. Please check them, study them, and give me your take on patterns. For instance, how should I approach this important decision? you know for instance, they had some diplomatic issue with their neighbors. They probably ask the scribes, try to find some things that highlight some red flags. Maybe that will help me. So the poets, you could almost see the future, and they could also write predictions. According to this and this and that the other, I predict that in some time this might happen again. So they became very famous and feared, etc., persecuted. um, Again, nowadays we call them conspiracy theorists. And like in the past, they were, you know, discredited, ridiculed, most of them. Very important that prophets sometimes got, you know, uh, called or equated with the solar deity, you know, because of the love that they bring to the world. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, like I read here in the text. So, so yeah, I think I'm gonna shut up now. Have a nice day.